thanks so much for being here this morning with us. So we have Ryan Warzecha, we have Eric Anderson, and of course everyone knows Rand Miller. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah, the watermelon guy.
His legacy.
So yes, it's true. So the first question is, how is everyone doing?
Doing great. Lots going on at the studio.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's busy. Firmament, man. Oh, it's a lot going down. And even the last couple of weeks have just been amazing. Just seeing what's going in. I think Rand and Eric can attest to that. So
I want to hear how Rand's doing. Rand's on vacation right now. So Rand, how's your vacation going, Rand?
Working really, really hard here in some place, Scotland. And yeah, it's been hard for the last few weeks, man. Picked a good time for a vacation, I think. Yeah, never been here. It's fun. They have haggis.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
We're doing really good though. The studio is at full blast, working on numerous things, and it's been a crazy year, but we've been very, very productive.
Good. That's good to hear. I know there was a lot of oohing and ahhing at the State of the Union video yesterday with the firmament stuff. So, well, with all of it, but especially with the firmament stuff, because there was a lot of pretty there. So, oh boy, I have a lot of fun questions here. So, in the light of firmament, are there any unused concepts from abduction that are being used in firmament? The like concepts from abduction that didn't quite work out, but they're like, you know what?
Well,
throw that over here.
There's kind of one.
Okay.
I mean, just the one. I mean, in the one place. But I can't really say anything.
That's okay.
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, there. I mean, Rand, the one. What I'm working on currently.
Cool. Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Because that originally started as an abduction concept for Chain Age, and then
yeah. I will say this: as we've been working on firmament, we have a habit of revisiting like concepts that we have revisited in previous games.
Yeah.
And there's been a few times where we'll be deep on like a story design thing or something, and we'll be like a full day in, and we'll just start laughing at ourselves and be like, wait. If we were to like diagram this is literally the same thing we did. Ah, crap! We got to start over and rethink it. So.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. It's just we have our tendencies.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Have you ever thought about doing some kind of augmented reality game?
Rand has.
I'm sure he has.
So the biggest challenge with like an AR game in my mind is trying to step out of the mold that we think of. You know, every time something new comes, a new way to express your entertainment comes around, you kind of get stuck in the old one. Like, you know, film was stuck in vaudeville, and CD-ROM was stuck in discs, and you know, even VR is stuck in flat screens, and so you kind of want to think of it out of the box. That's the hard part. So yeah, we talk about those things and see what is it that we could do with that, thinking outside the box. And I don't think we have anything concrete, but I'm really excited about AR stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So it's on the back burner, but it hasn't left the stove. Is that a fair way to put it?
I think part of it is. Yeah. Part of it is also we're waiting for the platforms to catch up. Because right now, if you were to say like, what would you go play it on? Like there's no killer platform for AR right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
And in a couple of years, you know, if Apple or somebody else, I mean, Apple's the only one I can think of that would like is even positioned right now to come out with something that would totally revolutionize the space. Yeah. If they were to come out and have like a set of AR glasses or something that suddenly everybody had, then that would change the conversation, because now it's like, oh, everybody has access to it. But right now, I'm not sure who we would sell it to.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be the early. It's the early stages, because exactly what Eric said. And the interesting thing is, and you guys can all do this same thought experiment you may have, is we make interesting places to lose yourself. So how do you combine that with the average everyday world that we're in without walking down the street into a portal and running into a car?
That's true.
So there, but that's the part that feels like thinking backwards, and we need to think forward. So that exercise will continue, but like Eric said, it's all just very theoretical until somebody puts some meat on those bones and we know what AR is.
Okay, that's fair. Have you guys ever considered doing abduction or firmament-based novels, similar to the Myst novels?
I'll speak about Firmament because I said this before, and I'll say it again. This story is really cool.
Yay!
And we've had a few design sessions where we're like, oh man, this would make a sweet movie. It makes a really good game, but it also it's just one of those stories that it feels good at its base. And
to be fair, Rand's been trying to turn our games into movies for 20 years. Every project he's like, man, if we could just do this as a linear narrative,
it would be so much easier.
But he has actually said that about Firmament. He's like, oh, this is something I could totally see being more. So yeah,
I definitely think there's room for novels in that space for sure.
Yeah, that Firmament's interesting because it's like we build a lot of backstory in, and it's there to keep us honest and to make things flow in a way that's not just smoke monsters and polar bears. We want to know why things are here and where they came from and where it's going, and so some of that stuff will come through in the game, and a lot of it won't necessarily. There's so much backstory that can be filled in, and so who knows, what happens with that. It doesn't ever have to see the light of day. It still makes the game really, really good.
Nice.
So
it's canon.
Somebody get David Wingrove on the line, and we'll make that happen.
So it's canon. Firmament has smoke monsters and polar bears. Is that what I'm hearing?
Definitely, Firmament has some canon and some details in the background. Yeah.
Okay, so this one's kind of a fun one. So the Myst mini golf panel was yesterday, and that looks super exciting. There was a lot of oohing and aahing. Is Cyan embracing more options like that, where it's just kind of like the theme is there, but having just kind of that openness, but it's not necessarily, something like mini golf, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you mean in terms of like licensing the IP and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Boy, I feel like the mini golf thing was a special case because we were already such fans of what they were doing. If trying to think of like a really bad example, like if
Pissed.
Yeah, okay.
Fortnite.
Yeah. If only we knew somebody who actually, you guys didn't like officially license that, did you? That was parody. Like they never reached out. Okay. Yeah. If what's a brand that we would never want to be associated with? Like if Monster Energy Drinks was like, man, we want to do a Myst themed energy drink, we'd probably have to stop and think about that one a little bit. But in the case of mini golf, it was genuinely, we were excited that they were even asking.
Yeah. It's not like we have some licensing department that goes out looking.
I know.
So honestly, I think we look at the same way probably most of you do. Like, oh, mini golf would be cool on this island. That would be fun.
Yeah.
So when that was brought up, we all kind of thought the same thing. Oh, yeah, okay, that would be fun.
Okay.
So
I'm sure VR had nothing to do with it.
If you guys have ideas of, that would be fun on this island.
Yeah,
we probably think the same way.
And just to be clear, I mean, we had a lot of faith in them as a team too. If their track record had been not good, I'm sure we would have been. And you got to understand, we get pitches all the time from crazy corners of the internet, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do this thing? And we have to be like, I'm sorry, that's just not what we do. But the fact of the matter is, they had a proven successful product that had really good courses. And so it was easy to draw a connection to what they would do with it, and they've done exactly that. Like we've seen, their in progress stuff, and it's just as good as the other stuff they're doing. So yeah, it was a good fit.
Awesome. This question is I think I was confusing this question with the last question, so I apologize for the confusion there. Has Cyan considered making more of a walking simulator where players have just the freedom to walk around wherever without like free roam mode in a game like Abduction or Firmament? Granted, that lacks the story behind the whole purpose of solving the puzzles and all that stuff, but like just kind of a visual shiny that folks can walk around, if that makes sense.
Is that more of a like from scratch kind of thing that's just narrative based without the friction, or is it just a solved option for existing games?
This is a very I didn't want to read the whole paragraph, but one of the parts in here is or a free roam mode in Abduction or Firmament.
Got it.
Specifically,
we haven't thought of that. I mean, or maybe it's crossed our minds. I mean, we have thought of different levels of play before, like
right.
Setting it to hard or easy depending on how you want to play and how much friction you want, and whether you really are into puzzles or whether you just like the visual landscapes. But I don't think we've ever thought that the meter went all the way to zero.
Yeah.
And you just walked around.
Okay.
But it's an interesting thought.
Yeah. It's tough for well, I feel like I'm answering the wrong question here. I'll start with the actual have we thought about that. It's tough for us to think about something like that because we tend to think of game design as like a holistic, like I'm going to go to Miller's Pillars, which I know he's talked about before. So I don't think it counts if you name it after yourself, Rand, but yeah.
I did not come up with that. That is not somebody else came up with that. And I was like, ooh, man.
But the idea, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's something we talk about, our sort of philosophy of game design. The idea that the game is broken into sort of three major pillars of I don't know, what would you call it?
Just
the major components
that hold together and intertwine, on an equal basis. We try and keep the three things kind of balanced.
And those three things are
story, environment, and friction.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Cornerstones.
So every time every time we put a puzzle in, we're like, well, why is that puzzle here? And is there narrative behind that? And does it fit the environment it's in? And every time we add something to the environment, we say, well, does this fit the story? And should there be friction around this? Should there be something that you have to do before you get to see this? And so we try to keep those balanced, and that's just our what we think is important for what we do. So good point, Eric. Yeah,
because they play off each other, right? Like if you have like a cool vista with a big reveal and you show like the world that you're in, like putting that right there where the player can just walk up to it is cool and all, but it's better if you can actually prevent them from getting there until they sort of like earn it.
You got to work for it.
You work for it. And so it would be really tough to design a space that was just wide open, all the bells and whistles on, without fabricating that sort of story and friction framework around it. So
it would definitely lose something if we tried to do that with existing games.
Right.
I think from scratch we could do something, but it would be a much shorter experience as well. So
that's true.
It might take as much production to build it, and it might be a lot shorter experience. So that all has to come into play.
Right. Yeah.
Good question, though.
That makes sense. Oh, I like that. It actually answers some of my own questions about, appreciating the why some of the puzzles are in your games. Like, because they put thought into this. There's story behind it. So yeah, I like that. Okay.
Some puzzles more than others. I mean,
no, we're not always perfect at Miller's Pillars.
But I'm not going to find a random weirdness of like, why is this door locked? And there being no reason behind it. Like, okay, we're going to kind of take a shift here. Is there this is a theory about Escher in End of Ages. Sorry. Is there more to the character that we don't know? I.e., some people have suggested that he's actually Kadish under a false name.
I've heard that suggested.
I know, it's a little obscure, sorry.
That's not what we ever thought. We thought that it was somebody who followed the thoughts of Dunny being very important and wanting to maintain that power, but it's somebody who had linked out early on, saved themselves, and managed to get away from the cavern, and then came back to find the devastation, and then took on
okay.
a role of saying, okay, no, what is going on and what can I do here? Because
it's my job to fix everything, kind of a okay.
That's essentially how we looked at Ash.
Okay, that's fair.
And can confirm Kadish is a skeleton wearing UGG boots. He's
awesome.
He dead.
Excellent. Okay. Whose idea was it for adult Yisha to have a giant tattoo on her face?
Mike Tyson's. I think we did Yisha before Mike Tyson.
Oh, okay.
I don't. So many of our ideas are hard to put on a single person because it's like it's a bunch of people in a room. I know I liked the idea. I don't know if I came up with it, but I was intrigued with that, and in particular because she was supposed to seem a little fringy.
Right.
She's had some weird experiences in her life, and her brothers are messed up, and she was they were neglected. She was probably doted on in a different way, and I mean, family. We all know, and so we wanted her to seem like she had a bit of free spirit and interesting stuff that was playing out, and that seemed like at least one more clue that she had a mind of her own.
Got it. She very much had a mind of her own. Speaking of siblings, what was it like to essentially have? I'm thinking of Revelations. To have Akinar be redeemed and Sirius be not.
I have mixed emotions on all that.
Okay.
I don't know how Eric and Ryan feel. That was an idea that was presented to us, and I know we pushed back a little. It was hard. Those were hard ones, and there were parts of it that seemed interesting, and parts of it that felt like, oh man, I don't know, because it seemed like parts of that were wrapped up, and digging it up was fun, but unbalanced in some weird way.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sure the question's asked out of the same kind of thought process that we probably had when they presented it as well. It's like, that was cool, but we probably had similar reaction.
Okay.
Ryan, you have, how did you feel about that?
I would say the same thing. It's just like, I mean, interesting characters, but at the same time, like, did we need to go to that spot? I don't know. It's a good game. But it's I don't know that Cyan would have done that. I don't know.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like 3 and 4, like I love them, absolutely love them, but they're games that other studios did, right?
Sure.
So it's easy for to have conversations with your friends and be like, oh, did you watch that show last night? Oh man, that was a train wreck. What a mess. I find it very difficult to like, I don't want to critique their stuff because I know how hard it is to do this stuff and how easy it is to fall into the trap of like, oh, couldn't they have done better? Because man, there's some stuff that we've put in our games that if I could go back and right. So I'll say this. I'll say that I like seeing other people's interpretations of the IP. And, I don't think it hurts anything. Would we have made a different decision? Probably. But, that's kind of how it goes.
Okay. So this actually spawns kind of my own question of, do you follow the headcanon of were Sirius and Akinar trapped in the trap books on Myst in just the void of the expanse? Like,
we had some of these conversations actually on the recent remake of Myst. Trying to think about, what was the experience of the brothers in the trap books, because we had to put the player there, right, towards the end of the game. And I don't know that we ever came down on one side and said this is actually what happened. I think we treated it a
Yeah.
little bit more abstractly.
Okay.
Like
I'm
Yeah.
pretty
That's fair.
pretty vague. I mean, yeah, Jeremiah did make covers for those 2 books and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
there was a little bit of things there, but I think we try to keep it as vague as possible.
Okay.
This-
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think in my mind, vague is not always bad, and in those cases, I think the step beyond vague that I always considered was that Atris was not a cruel man, and it may
true.
have been this void, but it also accommodated their needs, whatever that was,
Okay.
you know, and based on something that Dunny did and Atris took advantage of. But and that was about as far as I thought of it.
Okay.
You know, I guess.
It's tough with Myst too, and we're on record saying, like, you know, Myst when it originally came out had a whimsicalness to it that, say, like Riven came, you know, when they did Riven, they came at it from a totally different intention and perspective.
Yeah.
And if you pick too much at Myst, it starts to fray, right?
Yeah.
Try to get too
That's fair.
like hard about the logic.
That's fair.
We found it easier just to frame up the stuff that we could and leave some stuff sort of nebulous, because if we were to try to nail it down in the way that, say, Riven was nailed down, I don't think it would survive the process. And so we want to be respectful to sort of the weirdness of the first game.
That's fair. That's fair. This is actually a fascinating question. So yesterday we had the panel on The Last Clockwinder, which I had a chance to play last week, and it's fabulous. So games like The Last Clockwinder, like The Witness, you know, they're based around kind of a core mechanic, and then it gets more complex as you go along. Have you guys ever considered doing that type of structure?
We talk about that all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a I'm not going to say a debate, because I don't think there's like contention or anything, but
Sure.
We have tried many times to sort of walk that walk and be like, well, let's just come up with, we call it, you know, a core mechanic or a repeatable mechanic. And I very much subscribe to the philosophy of taking a simple mechanic and then extrapolating on it and expanding it. This goes back to kind of my earlier question about old habits. Once we get into a design cycle, I'll speak for myself. I have observed that we find it difficult to stick to some of those rules, and it's hard to not do one-off, like, oh, what if we did this thing here, and oh, we did I have an idea for a different puzzle thing that's sort of outside the scope of the core mechanic, and we just can't help ourselves, and so we end up sort of making what we call one-off puzzles anyway. One-off meaning like it's unique in the way it works, and it's not tied into like a super core system.
Okay.
You guys give your thoughts.
Well, I was thinking of even you know, current game design. We went down some paths that required that kind of core gameplay mechanism that would get more and more intense or hierarchical, or I don't know how you want to describe it, where you continue to kind of use the same thing. And sometimes it felt like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, we would go down paths a while, and then it would feel like, well, it feels like I've got to develop a skill here maybe. And then we'd push back on that and say, oh, I don't think people are going to appreciate having to do a skill here.
Right.
And we'd push back a little bit and go back and forth. And like Eric said, we would, and sometimes probably maybe just because of our habit of what we've done, and because of Miller's Pillars, we're like, well, what would really fit here is if this blah, 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 blah. And so we kind of migrate to that naturally. It doesn't mean we're opposed to it. It's just, we also want to make sure everything fits well, and we're not building a game that's so different than what we have in the past.
Yeah.
But
It's an interesting question, though. We talk about that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suddenly feel the urge to make Miller's Pillars into a T-shirt. Sorry. Ryan, did you have any comments on that?
No. I'm right in the same boat. So,
Same loop. All right. Let's see. Oh, this is a fun one. What did you think about the potential that the worlds in Cyan games have encouraged people to explore in the real world?
I like that idea.
Yeah,
In a
yeah,
lot of ways, it's like a full circle because I feel like the reason I make games is because I enjoyed exploring as a kid. We grew
Yeah.
up exploring the real world.
Right.
So it feels like, oh, let's make worlds because that's a fun thing. So if that turns it on its head and makes people explore the real world, that's awesome.
That's fun. I know it's always satisfying to see like some hexagonal stones. I can't remember the name of them, but the ones that you see in Exile, and it's like, oh, hey, we're standing in Amateria. Like, that's got to be really
Columnar
satisfying.
basalt.
Yes, thank you. Those.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that's really fun. So it's got to be really
But
satisfying.
I'll take that a step further too,
Yeah.
which is seeing people talk about not just like, oh, I went and traveled because of your games or whatever, but like I got into making video games because of you guys. Like that never gets
Oh
old.
yeah, yeah.
And I can speak from experience. Like I was in high school when the original Myst dropped, and I wouldn't be doing this today if Rand hadn't made Myst back at the right time, and
Yeah.
it hooked my imagination.
Yep.
So I mean,
100%.
seeing people say that about our more recent games, like, oh, I just played Abduction for the first time, and I'm a student, and oh my gosh, I love it. And it's like, that's why we do this. Yeah.
Singing
Yeah,
this is why we're here song.
Philip has brought that up before. That's something coming from my direction.
Yeah.
That's so like humbling because that's why we did Myst, is because we were encouraged and pushed on by people who did creative things before us. So it's really interesting when your little work you did pushes people to do even better, more impressive things. And I think Philip has talked about, how he, even in the documentary, he'd love to talk to people about that have gone on to do other things because of it. And those stories are amazing to me.
Yeah,
really cool.
That's fun. It's like you made this one little project and then mountains moved. We've already asked that one. Okay. So, did the team behind the Myst DS and 3DS ports ever reach out to Cyan for the resources or feedback? How did those ports come to be? I'm sorry if this is an awkward question.
Okay, so those were very different ports, as I recall.
Yeah.
And different teams that did them. And you have to, I mean, some of those were, at least, I don't know both of them, but indie stuff goes like this. And sometimes when you're down at one of these, you're like, somebody says, hey, we could do a port to this. And you're like, okay, that would be great because maybe it'll make us go like this a little and we can stay alive a little longer. I know that one of those was done by a company outside Spokane that I think did an okay job. The DS one was tricky on so many levels, I think. And it was done by an outside company that had really good intentions. And we tried to provide everything we could, but it was a push both technology-wise and budget-wise for everything to come together on that.
That's fair.
Yeah. Do you remember any details, Eric? Or
I mean,
you might not even be here for that.
That was before I was before my time, and would have been way off my radar when I first started anyway. So
yeah.
That's fair. How did it feel when you finally finished reacquiring the rights to sell all of the games?
It's good. The thing, it's really weird. We've always just wanted our rights back. Like when we had trouble with Osmo early on at Cyan, and a certain company went bankrupt and didn't pay us or whatever, and we just said, well, you don't even have to pay us, just give us our rights back. And they were like, well, no, we'll go to court. Like, what? No. Anyway, long story short, we just wanted our games back. So getting even Myst and Riven back, at some point we put terms on those contracts, and it seemed like forever when we put the terms on it, but it was so satisfying getting those back when they finally rolled in. but it was always a little bit frustrating, even though we didn't make the specific games, to have others that were out of the fold, so we could never sell a package or put those together.
Right.
Because I mean, you guys like packages, we like packages.
Yeah, bundles are great.
Mix, so
yeah, I mean, for years we've been getting the question like, why don't you guys sell the bundle? And it's like, you can't, you don't want to go in a public forum and be like, because we legally can't, blah blah blah. And so it felt finally getting that cleaned up was nice.
And it took a lot longer than it should have. Tony worked on that for years, I think, actually, just because those weren't big for Ubisoft at the time. They had dwindled off to nothing. And so, getting the attorney's attention at Ubisoft to go, please, can we work on these? And finally they did, and they were really nice about it. Yeah, it was good.
Awesome. Rand, this is a you question. Which Myst novel is your favorite?
Ooh.
And why?
Boy,
Merum, right?
Yeah,
I'm not asking you about that book.
Definitely the best.
The book of Viovis that he's working on. That's the one.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. I love it's between Atris and Tiana, obviously, and I go back and forth because I love the journey down with Atris and Gan, that whole thing, and I love the details of the book writing that are revealed as part of the story, and the way that's revealed, with Gen really not doing it right and Atris kind of catching on to what's going on here. That's just, ooh, boy, I love that.
Yeah.
But then on the Tiana side, sorry, I probably won't, I don't know if I may convince myself one way or the other as a try, but I love the Tiana side where it truly is the merger of a culture where for the first time they find a hole, they go in the hole, they find their way down. That's just really cool too. And I like both of those stories. I mean, the same way probably that I tend to like the very first Star Wars movie only because it's the first one and it had such a big impact on me.
Right.
If the meter tilted a little bit, it would probably be the Atris.
That's fair. Cyan has dedicated a large amount of resources to developing and supporting VR projects. Besides, obviously, the Oculus Home environment for Quest, have you considered working with any other community environments, either the standalone or VR chat or anything like that? Are there unique challenges to that kind of work?
Yes. The biggest being, I can answer this a couple different ways, but from a development standpoint, we get inquiries often about either putting representations of our worlds in other frameworks or developing content for other frameworks. Just that's all new. And it's tough because we as a studio, we've dedicated years of and millions of dollars and years of time to honing our tool chain. We're an Unreal studio. Everybody that we have is specialized in that tool set. And so the idea of developing content for somebody else's engine with their, the way you even implement artwork or game logic is specific. It's like trying to think of a parallel. It'd be like, hiring Tesla Motors to make pedaled mopeds or something. Like it's a bad fit. It's a bad fit.
Right.
That's how I always come at it. But Rand and Ryan, I would love your thoughts.
No, it's a really cool idea. I think we all wish we could do more of that, but it's a return on investment. It's
Sure.
I mean, that to sum up Eric's thing, it's like, man, we'd have to put a lot more work into it because the tools we know are not the tools we'd use to make that, and that work just. I don't know who wants to pay those bills and put that amount of time.
And would we be proud of the finished product, right? Like if
Yeah, that's fair. Ryan, do you have any comments?
No. Return on investment. Hey, I'm just here to audit this course. Okay, like
I was gonna say, you've been very quiet.
I'm making sure that Rand doesn't say anything that he's not supposed to. So that like if he starts going into something, I'm gonna be like blah 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 over it. Okay? So, like, yeah.
Somebody will have control and
That's
mute
gonna
my
look
mic if
fantastic
I
on the
start
stream.
giving Steve control. We look at Uru assets even the same way. Like there's so many cool areas in Uru that we'd love to do something with, but it's just and they make cool little environments that you could go to. But it's it's the same problem. That's an old engine, and it's just hard.
I think what Eric said during the state of Cyan, yesterday, we all love Uru, right? But at the same time, that's plasma engine. That's a lot of things that it would take so much effort at this point to just
What would it look like to port everything over to a different engine?
A nightmare.
A nightmare. Okay, that's fair.
It wouldn't be a nightmare. I think the biggest problem is that Uru's in particular is just so doggone big.
Yeah, that's true.
It is just so big. So doing portions of that, or you totally could do a section of it, but it's all so intertwined. And, I mean, that's one of the reasons I still love it to this day. It's just, you go in there and lose yourself. And that's,
in the case of Uru, I mean, I know for a fact if we were to even just come up with a plan to like, oh, we'll just port it. We'll just port it. It'll be, we wouldn't be able to help ourselves. Before we knew it, we would be up to our elbows, completely rebuilding everything. Because that's, I mean, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
So, in light of that, what are your thoughts about the Garrison wall finally being brought to life there?
Yes, love it.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Oh my gosh, the stuff that the fans are doing in Uru, it's all just thumbs up, exciting.
Yes.
I mean, it feels like just every one of those updates is a little more life in Uru. And my wife and I go in there. We just love hanging. It's really cool. And having new things in there just makes it that much better. More functionality and more areas. Very cool.
That's awesome.
The Garrison wall in particular made me super happy because we spent a lot of time building that. I mean, this, the old multiplayer plan before everything went sideways. It was like we spent a lot of time in there. I'm the guy who built that room. I built that wall, and like,
oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, Eric.
Yeah, seeing that get, shelved or whatever was like bummer. So when I saw that they had revitalized it and it was working, I was like, yeah, it lives.
Yeah, I love what people are doing with Mula. I mean, and keep doing it, right? And Cyan has their own projects. We have lots of other stuff that we have to do. And so if the fans want to continue to be the new writers of Mula, that's awesome.
You got a couple devs in the room that are like going that are very, very happy right now. So okay, I'm going to switch gears over into abduction mode here. In abduction, matching the relative locations of swap points across different worlds seems like a gigantic level design challenge. Did you have to model the worlds on top of each other? Did you eyeball it? Like how that was some kind of sorcery that happened right there.
Eric, did you come up with that question? That is such a good question.
I'll slide you $5.
And I love Eric's answer on this.
I'll slide you $5 after the talk. We could talk for the rest of the hour about this. Let's start with how those designs started life. I think everybody knows this, but I'll have Rand and Ryan talk about like how the design process started and then where it went to.
If you haven't played abduction, plug your ears.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Rand.
Well, I think, and again, all of this is a lot of people putting thoughts in, so it's not any one person. I mean, I'll name people because I think some people seeded stuff, and I think Eric was the one who said, can we have these things that swap, this idea of swapping, and then we took that in design and probably tripled down on it and said, well, what if they're exactly the same space, and what if there's what if there's big ones and small ones, and even in 3D space there's ups and downs, and then we bring that out. And
Yeah, that was a trip. When I first found that, I was like, whoa.
oh my gosh. And the crazy thing is that we're going to great detail to do that, and Eric can fill in then, because it was important to us that it was all in the same spot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and,
So they-
and just, Rawa and I didn't care how they did it. Eric, take it now.
So Rawa and Rand did these giant paper maps. They were like these, the size of a tabletop, and they were like giant. I think you took like a trash can lid and circumscribed a circle for the border of the age.
Yeah.
Do they
And then-
still exist?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
they're the office.
Mhm.
And then they would figure out where all the sphere swaps inside each world were, and overlay that with the other maps from the other worlds, so that on paper they lined up correctly.
Oh, wow.
And then they took them to us and said, "Here's kind of the skeleton of the puzzle. Now make it all fit together. Make it all work." And so
And
yeah.
by the way, this is 2D flat, but you guys can make this in 3D,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Make
be
it
easy.
easier. That's
That would
awesome.
be easy. So we took it into 3D and masked everything up. The convenient thing, though, is that all the worlds, to your question, are built around sort of the same theoretical space. So we could always export a sphere from one world and sort of load it up in the other world right in the spot and swap things out. And so it actually was a lot easier in 3D to line things up than you would think. Once we knew where all of our key sphere swaps were and the size, we could sort of fill in the rest, because it didn't really matter what happened outside that. So
Right.
that was a fun process. A lot of lessons were learned. And then Ran and Rawa made it even more complex by coming back with the idea. Those two guys came up with the idea of teleportation from point to point on the outside of the dome, which throws another wrench in the mix, because now suddenly all of our passageways that touch the dome have to have a sibling on the opposite side that matches perfectly.
Right.
And you would think that's easy, but now you're
Not so
talking
much.
polar coordinates. You move this one up and this one goes down, and it's like, now
And
my
you
head
can
hurts.
see it when you get right up to the barrier, and then you start like strafing sideways. You can see the other side going the other direction, and
Many conversations were had about that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I remember for like 5 minutes, there was a talk about dynamics sphere swaps, where you could place them wherever you wanted in the world.
Oh my gosh.
That was like 5 minutes.
Oh
And
yeah,
then we
Rand
got-
was like,
nope.
could we take any arbitrary piece of geometry and just take a chunk out of it and move it somewhere? And we're like, Rand,
Nope.
stop.
I don't remember that at all.
Wow, that is really cool. In light of that, when you're coming up with different worlds for your games, and worlds is generic, worlds and abduction and ages in the Myst games, do you brainstorm until you come up with a whole collection of worlds, or are there like specific steps? It's like, oh yes, we need one that looks like this, and we need one that looks like that, and like, kind of how does that work? And that's all of the above. That's abduction. That's Myst games. That's I'm assuming there's worlds and firmaments, but I don't know.
It's a good question.
I think it's a mixture sometimes. You
Okay.
guys can correct me, but it feels like sometimes we'll get started with one world and do a little more detail on that before we decide what's in the other ones. But other times it feels like we've got like, oh, there should be these three things, and it depends on what's behind those worlds.
That's true.
Some worlds are more arbitrary. Some have more important functionalities behind them depending on the game. And so it could go either way, I suppose. And by the way, you notice that with Firmament, I'm going to tell you now, we keep calling those things ages only out of habit.
Hey, I still call the abduction world ages. I think everyone else does too.
Exactly.
It's
You
fine.
just change those at this point. So
The
please
assumption is
don't
just
take
there.
anything more than just, yeah.
It's a good
Oh, man.
question. The original intent behind each of the worlds it differs, because there's sometimes where you're like, it's purely based on aesthetics.
Right.
Like you're just
Right.
like, I just have I want to build a space that has this flavor to it. And I can think of examples like an abduction. That's what the Chain Age was. The Chain Age was, whatever it's called, Captar.
Captar.
It's called the
I
Chain
call
Age.
it the Blue Cliffs age. So like,
There you go.
Hey.
The Blue Age. That was purely just an aesthetic like thing we wanted to do.
Okay.
The idea of big metal things juxtaposed with sort of an ancient culture, and try to have multiple
And enormous fish.
Yeah, a giant fish skeleton.
Yeah.
But there's other times where we have like a story beat we want to hit. Like, what is the purpose? What's the thing that we need to convey narratively in this age?
Farley's house, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of balance, like to me, the one thing that is always front of mind when we're talking about balancing a game and its worlds is just variety. Like, there's a reason that the color palettes in, say, Abduction are the way they are, and it's not. Part of it is for variety. You want the player to experience a whole bunch of different flavors, but along with that, you get things like color identity that help the player navigate and understand where they are as they're navigating through the world.
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
oh, I'm in that, like you called it the Blue Cliffs Age.
Exactly, yeah.
We joke about the fact that you call it Blue Cliffs Age, but the fact that you identify it at that in your head is you're building a mental map.
Yeah. Because like Hunrath is so orange.
Exactly.
And Marae is so green, and then.
Yep.
And so when you came across those swaps, all of a sudden you're swapping things. You saw the orange and the blue, and then you're realizing, okay, this is going to this place, and this is going to this place. So
okay.
The key is trying to do that and not make it feel too video gamey, but it does serves a utility. So
no, I like that. Okay, that's cool. Let's see. Oh, this is kind of a meta question. You've just been abducted from your home, and you materialize in Hunrath. What is one item that came with you that's going to be very useful that you'll make sure nobody knows you have it? If it was me, I'd say a mislinking book, but hey.
Randall with salt?
I watched Survivor, and I keep thinking, man, if I was in Survivor and I could bring something, I think I would just bring salt. Those meals are so boring. I just want salt on my rice.
That's
I
fair.
don't know.
Ryan, what do you got?
I choose violence, so a pocket knife. So.
I thought you were going to ask a different question, which was if you were in Hunrath, what would you do? And I was going to say, I'd go straight to the tiki bar that's in the airplane.
Exactly.
Maybe I'd bring a bottle opener for the tiki bar.
Yes, that's a good one. That's
my knife works as that. So
bring a bottle of rum, because I have a feeling that tiki bar has been dry for years.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Nope, I've already asked that one. Sorry, I am almost at the bottom of my list here. Oh, scanned over that one. This is a Riven question. How did you decide to make Riven take place almost entirely in a single giant age, despite the fact different ages being a huge selling point for Myst?
Good, very good question. Boy, I don't think we've ever been asked that. It actually was, we did that purposefully to almost differentiate it a bit. Like, okay, we did the thing where we went to all these ages. Let's see if we can make these islands. I mean, the whole point of Riven, because of the backstory, was these things had broken apart.
Yeah.
Let's try and give them a life of their own and make it so that that's not necessarily the point of this game is to get to the age. It's to try and make it a little bit different feeling than Myst, so it's not just the same. Now, I'm not sure, that was good or bad. And you notice that in ongoing games, we like going back to the
you like your ages
model as well. I think it was a good exercise, and for Riven in particular, because of what Eric said earlier, Riven was built meticulously to probably like no other. Well, I mean, I actually look at Abduction and think it also has like so much in there as well. Firmament as well, but Riven in particular, you guys know how much detail we put into the environment actually supporting everything. And so the different islands fit that well, and we thought that they would each have a personality and a distinction of their own that would feel somewhat like going to different places, and you could segment them in your mind, but it wouldn't be that book link. And it's good and bad. I mean, it's always fun coming across a book and going to a new place. So it was, but it's also fun jumping in a maglev and taking a roller coaster.
That's true.
Did you guys ever get pushback or like pressure from either publishers or other outside entities to like, whoa, you should go back to Crazy Worlds? No?
No, it was because at that point it was, I mean, we knew what Riven was. We were pretty sure about what it would be, and we knew we would get to go to at least a couple couple different ages. So
You were able to say, "Watch this."
right.
That's awesome.
I think they were also happy with the roller coaster rides.
That's fair. Those were really cool. Is there any pieces of Myst fan art that have stood out to you as especially impressive?
Oh, some of the stuff that Tweak has done, and then Claire and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's just some amazing stuff out there, and yeah, it continues to get better and better. I mean, it's always does.
Is it always exciting to see new pieces of?
The physical things that people make from the games are always amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of the name of the multi-dimensional, like
The not IOE. I know
not
it's
IOE.
Gamadet?
Gamadet. Yeah.
There's one. Oh,
Yeah.
you're not going to see me pointing, but it's over there.
Yeah,
Parker brought a good set of Gamadet.
It's just so much fun, so cool. I hate to pick out one because I'm not at the office and I can't see all the stuff that's come in, but
Right.
I mean, it's just I'm inspired by the amazing work that's comes out of our work,
Nice.
and especially when it's real life stuff.
Yeah,
that people have
yeah.
made.
Yeah,
Really-
or even the demakes, the stuff like we were talking yesterday, the Dieter
yeah.
stuff with like the
Oh,
Atari or the Apple
Atari
IIe.
and the
Like I know those aren't physical and they're basically like different versions of the game, but like
Right.
that's so cool.
I think
It's
last
just
year
amazing.
someone did an Apple II demake. It was on the virtual thing. That was
Yep.
mind blowing.
Yeah, I want to see an RCA VIP. remake. If any of you
Someone in
know
here
what
has
that
homework.
machine is, good luck. I think Mark DeForest and I both had that computer, like
Awesome.
in the 70s.
Are there paper punch cards involved?
I'm using the word computer very loosely. It was, yeah.
All right, so I only have a couple more questions here. What's after Firmament?
I don't know.
Wow.
Okay.
This is where Ryan starts going, la, la, la.
Yeah.
Now's your cue, Ryan. Do it.
Yeah.
More
are,
games, hopefully.
I'm just going to say we're holding certain things, close.
Mhm.
Firmament is our focus.
Yeah.
And, but we have already some other plans underway. So the
Awesome.
pipeline is already, starting to fill for after that.
Yay.
There won't be a void after Firmament. But,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
but we
No,
don't
no,
want to
no.
say anything or get into it at all. 'cause
I'll,
we're-
I can answer this in a more abstract way. For years,
More?
Cyan, what was that, Rand?
more abstract?
More abstract, yeah.
Wow.
For years, Cyan had a habit of working on one project at a time and not really knowing
Right.
what was next, and that got us into some hot water multiple times over the years. And
Yep.
so, for the last several years, one of our big objectives was to try to mitigate that, to not do that. So, so we've been very, very conscientious about making sure we have multiple irons in the fire and multiple projects that we're working on at the same time. And like, people are like, man, oh, you guys, Eric, you seem real tired. You seem like you're stressed.
Keyword
Like,
there being fire.
part of that is because like we are, too many chainsaws, not enough hands. We're doing multiple things right now.
Makes
So
sense.
we can guarantee that when Firmament gets out, we're not in a situation where it's like, well, what's next? It's like the
Right.
next thing is rolling, y'all.
That's the next fire. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say this, that, Eric's saying that he's really, really tired and everything like that. But the stress of knowing or not knowing what's next versus the stress of knowing what's next, I mean, for the rest of the studio, it has been really, really helpful.
Yeah,
Let's just say
yeah.
that. I mean,
That's true.
Let's trade, Ryan. Can I trade? I want No, yeah, we're-
but honestly, Eric and Hannah have been doing an amazing job making sure that there are these other projects coming up, and so I know as an employee, and I think the rest of the studio would say it, we think just are so grateful for them to be able to just have that job security, to know that there's more and more to come.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful.
Those guys are doing. Eric and Hannah are, obviously doing doing all of the running things pretty much at this point. I sit here in Scotland and drink Guinness.
Spoilers.
And
Rand's in Scotland.
it's not exactly true. I do check Slack occasionally and say,
Check
put a
Slack,
smiley
drink
face in
scotch.
or
That's
something.
his schedule.
Um,
But no, it's all this is to say, like, don't worry. There's future plans. We're just not talking about them yet. Yeah, we can. If you want more info, go watch the Q&A that Hannah and I did yesterday. Everything you want to know
that
will
was
be in there.
fabulous.
Yep.
That was a fabulous video.
by the way, I'm dying to talk about what we're doing. Just, I think I'm under contract to not.
I will say this. There was an Easter egg in that video that no one has spotted yet.
Oh, Eric,
No one
you
caught it.
already.
It's on the
talked about
Twitch for y'all. It's on Twitch if you want to go back and watch it. Go back and watch it. Yeah. No one
That's all
caught
I'll
it.
say.
Eric, always giving it away. Oh man.
It wasn't me. Wasn't me.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was in Rand's clip. You don't know.
Hey, stop. Now you're just giving away too much away. Okay.
It's a puzzle, Ryan. That's what we do.
Yeah, but a puzzle, but you don't give them the hints. Like you just.
Tell that to Prima Strategy Guide.
Well, I think we're just about out of time. So there is definitely a few comments in here about just hoping that everyone is doing well and healthy and in doing fabulously.
I know
all that jazz.
I know that maybe the fan community is wondering a little bit too. We just had Rawa up at the office a couple of weeks ago. We just had a kind of an event to like celebrate some things, and it was really good to see him too. And so if everybody, yeah, he's doing really well. So.
I was gonna say, how is he?
Good.
Yeah, that's excellent.
It's really fun for me to hang with Rawa. I've seen him a few times in the last few months, but one of the things we did was when Philip was there, Rawa came down and we talked about old times of him working on Myst, and oh my gosh, it was that was amazing. That was so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a good time. Yeah,
it was really nice to see him.
Good.
Yeah, I think, I mean, generally speaking, I'm gonna double down on what Eric and Ryan said. Because of Eric and Hannah, we're in like a much more secure place for at least a longer than we have been in a while, which is really nice for employees. Eric feels the pressure of, oh yeah, we've got to get games done, and that's hard. And so we want to be the kind of company that's not making people go crazy in their work. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves, like, no, this is a job and we want to do it well, but we also want to have life outside and make sure we're not, the big driving company that, is capitalism wins.
Yeah.
So that it's hard. You have to kind of keep refocusing, and but it's I think we all feel pretty good about where we're at and where Cyan's going.
Yep. It sounds like. Go ahead. Sorry. Oh, I was gonna say it sounds like this is a good productive stress versus a fear of unknown stress, which is like a totally different flavor.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have stress, that's the stress stuff.
Honestly, the thing that gets me the most is this feeling of like it's the backers. Honestly, it's like I feel an obligation. I think the whole studio feels an obligation to deliver for them, but we realize like, things don't go according to plan, and plans change, and for the most part, the backers have been very, very understanding and forgiving, and they realize like why we're on the road we're on. But sometimes there are people who aren't that flexible, and
now.
And it's like, that's tough. So I think it's definitely made us want to not go certain routes in the future in terms of like crowdfunding is great, but like honestly, I would rather just focus on making
a whole
good
different flavor
stuff.
Of stress.
A whole different flavor of stress. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's the biggest issue with crowdfunding is that 99.9% of the people are like so awesome.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you get the
You
0.01%
can't-
because you're trying to make
yeah.
everybody happy, and you hear
Yeah.
those voices loud in your head, you
Mhm.
know, like, so it's rough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At the same time, we know that most people trust us
Yeah.
with to do something good that you'll enjoy. So
You're getting
and
thumbs up over here.
ways that was,
And I will say, like, you know, in the grand scheme of things, like video game fan bases in general,
Mhm.
we're very, very conscious and very aware of how fortunate we are to have the fan base that we
Yes.
have, because
Yes.
on the range of, you know, happiness to toxicity, it's like we're on the right end of the scale there.
Yes.
And we really, really appreciate the fans of our games.
Absolutely.
They're a different breed in the right way. So
Yeah.
thank
yep.
you guys
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
Well, I think we're about out of time, you guys. Thank you so much for spending time and talking to folks. And I know it's always very appreciated here. So I'm going to turn the microphone around and you can hear everyone clapping.
Yay.
Well, thank you for having us. This was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so
This
much.
is great.
You guys are awesome.